Listen, I'm a lucky man. I do get to speak to some legends in this sport. Don't come better than this man. The natural. How are you, sir? You good?
Good, very good, thanks.
Great to see you. We've just been speaking off camera. Obviously, this is now, what, number 5 trip to
My
Riyadh, Saudi Arabia
trip.
for you?
Yeah, that's right. Came over for the initial meetings with the PFL. PFL did things a little bit differently. They brought 12 of us over for those meetings, and it was really, really interesting. The first time to the country, and wasn't quite sure what to expect, honestly. I think our media misleads us some as to what's going on over here and what things are really like, and I was very pleasantly surprised. The food was amazing. They treated us fantastic. We're genuinely happy we were here, so it's been a fun experience to get to know Riyadh and be over here. This is my 5th trip.
The knowledge of MMA as well is the thing that surprised me this week, from speaking to local journalists and local fans about the way that they look at MMA. Because I thought that maybe they'd be more soccer fans or whatever, but you speak to them and the knowledge level, the thirst and enthusiasm for MMA is at a very high level. Yeah,
very high level, top notch. I was very impressed. Some great athletes coming out of here. I think we're going to get to see Hatan, this young female amateur MMA fighter, compete this weekend in the MENA finals as one of the showcase bouts, which is going to be very, very cool. The Minister of Sport for the entire country is a woman. Met 14 of their combative sports federations. Half of those leaders are all females as well. So things are definitely changing in this region. I think they recognize they're the largest population base in the area. So why is everything going to Dubai or Qatar? They want to step up and bring a lot of that stuff here, create opportunity and culture here in Saudi Arabia.
The growth of the sport, as we've just been discussing again off camera, it always helps when you've got local talent, like you've just said, performing in a local area and doing it at a high level. And the MENA part of the card at the weekend is going to be crucial to that. So if someone can step up and really claim that they're the person, then hopefully the sport will boom even further.
Yeah, I think having the MENA finals, which is our first year doing that regional promotion. This is our 2nd year. We just finished PFL Europe.
Yeah.
I think next year we see PFL Australia and potentially PFL Africa come online as well, with Francis running Africa. It's going to be very interesting. But the PFL MENA finals as the undercard was a brilliant touch, in my opinion. Give those guys a huge stage to perform on, one much bigger than they're used to, with all the global world championships, the 6 fights going on there as well. So it's going to be interesting.
We've also got the 6 $1 million fights, which I think everybody's eyes light up at, of course. I want to get your thoughts on tournament fighting, because obviously you're the man when it comes to tournament fighting. When you started, obviously, with the UFC, multiple in one night, this is slightly different. Do you think you'd have really enjoyed having the bracket around when
I think I would have embraced it for sure. I mean, obviously, fighting twice in one night was a challenge. I did that a couple times. My first UFC 13 was the tournament, and fought twice that night. Did the same thing in Shuto in King of Kings tournament in Japan. And it was a challenge for sure, physically and technically. How do you solve the problem when you don't know who's going to advance into that next round either? So you're literally focusing on yourself and doing what you think you need to do best. You don't have time to worry about where he's strong and those types of things in that scenario. So obviously we're using a fight twice in one night format in the first 2 seasons, and moved away from that. And I think for the obvious reasons, I don't think we always get the best fighter that advances. You end up with an alternate or something down the road because of injury, because of the nature of our sport. But I like the format now. I think the fighters have embraced it. They know exactly when their next fight is. They're not waiting for that phone to ring, say, hey, who's my next opponent? They know exactly where they stand with this format. And each and every one of them, almost to a man or woman, has embraced that and said, man, I really like that.
The physical challenges of that are obvious for everybody, but the mental challenges as well of the preparation. I mean, some fighters, you might have a little niggle, you might have a little knock, but if you miss your date, and you're out. Just that mental strength of being able to go from one to the other in that period of time, I think really sets the fighters in these brackets apart from other MMA fighters?
Yeah, I think you definitely have to tap into your resilience. You got to think forward think your camps, front load them a little bit, get yourself really good shape early on before that very first fight. And then those camps are going to be shorter each subsequent fight after that. You're looking at 3, you know, before to make the final, to then get a little time off and a full proper camp before you have to roll into the final, which is going on this weekend. So it's interesting, and we've seen some big names like Verdum and Pettis and others that misjudged what they've gotten themselves into, and then had to make the adjustments and kind of mitigate turning around every 8 weeks and fighting again.
I want to concentrate a little bit on Brendan Loughnane, with us being British. Getting the opportunity to do it again. Obviously, he was the champion in 2022. He had disappointment last year, and now he's back to try.
Semi-final loss to Jesus Pinedo, who took the sport by storm coming out of the Challenger Series that season, including Brendan. And that knee was ridiculous. The knee heard around the world. I think Brendan's amazing. I enjoy watching him. I enjoy his fighting style. Here's a guy that got smothered by a Dagestani in 2022.
Yep.
What's he go? He goes and seeks out those guys. There's where I need to work right there and shore up that part of my game. And we've seen him time and time again now show those wrestling skills in a defensive posture to keep guys exactly where he wants them, which is standing in front of him, striking. And he does it very, very well. I think that's a true testament to his character. After getting beat by Movlid Khaybalaev, to go seek that guy out and address those issues technically and tactically. That's the kind of guy Brendan is.
Do you resonate a lot with him? Because when I look at champions and fighters climbing the mountain, becoming the champion, I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy at all. It's a difficult thing to do. And then when you come off the mountain, to go again, that must be a very difficult thing. I mean, it's well documented that you consistently went, multiple time champion in the UFC. How hard is that to go a second time?
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge. How do you pick your ego back up? How do you dust that back off and keep the parts that are important, that are going to keep you laser focused on the task at hand and solving the problems and correcting the issues? And in my mind, that's championship spirit. It's not the person that wins all the time. It's the person that's able to face that adversity, recognize it for what it is, a chance, an opportunity to learn, to get better, and go back out there and do that work and get better, and then come back and win again. That's what it's all about in my mind. And Brendan is on the cusp of literally doing that, and was that close in 2023 when he ran into Jesus.
We're also celebrating Dakota Dechiva. She's kind of taken the PFL by storm. 8 fights in, never been to the judges. Obviously, we're very high on her. In the UK. What do you make of her?
I've been very, very impressed. Her mental acuity and focus and what she knows of the sport, knows exactly where her potential weaknesses are. We saw it in the Jenna Bishop fight, getting taken down and have a gal like that on your back in the first round of the fight. The worst place she could possibly be. And she stepped up. She showed exactly what she's made of, and that she has the tools in every aspect of the sport. I've been very, very impressed with her. Nobody is ripping to the body with the knees or the fists like she is, honestly. And some of those have been pretty devastating to watch. But, man, she's on fire, and rightly so.
Out of the other 6 $1 million fights, need to word that correctly, which one are you looking forward to the most?
Wow, there's some great ones here. I mean, Impa's another one that's taken the world by storm. And
been brilliant since he come to the PFL.
I mean, this guy sweat. I mean, it doesn't even look like he gets tired out there. I mean, it's amazing the pace he keeps, and again, his aptitude for the sport as well has been remarkable. There's a guy that came out of the Challenger Series and is looking to potentially repeat, which will be remarkable. But an amazing guy, one of the most intellectual guys you're ever going to interview. Yeah, he comes from all these different places. Like, man, where did you come up with that? Because that was impressive. He's been fun to watch. And then, obviously, the heavyweights, Goltsov, is he finally going to get it done? He's been in the finals a couple times.
Last year,
best jab in the sport. Amazing pedigree and, combat sambo and everything else that he's accomplished. He's been a steadfast performer in this league since he came. And now he's facing Popov, who, a couple of undefeated records on the line here with Umalatov as well. And Musayev. I mean, another great matchup.
That's the one for me.
Two Russians, very, very technical, both those guys. And who's going to go out and impose their will and kind of push the momentum in their favor and then keep it, hopefully, to get the victory. And who's walking away with a blemish on their record now. It's going to be fun.
Listen, if Randy can't sell it to you, then who can? Because you should be tuning into this because it's going to be sensational. You just mentioned, obviously, the heavyweights there. And obviously, last year it was Henan Ferreira that obviously stole the dreams of the fight that he's referring to. And we saw Henan last time out against Francis. I can't not speak to you about Francis because
Well,
what a guy. I mean, for all the trauma and horrible times that he's had outside of the smart cage, for him to come back in the way that he did against Henan Ferreira was just truly sensational. Yeah,
it was a very emotional night. I don't think the team really had the chance to have closure with Kobe and everything that happened with Francis's son, and him stepping up, not wanting to fight, but saying, no, you know what, I didn't get a chance to fight for my son. I'm going to fight this time for my son, and dedicate that fight to him was emotional for everybody. And he did the job. He went out, obviously, why did he come to Extreme Couture? To shore up his wrestling, to show, that he had the skills in that part of it. He got taken down and smothered by Miocic the first time they fought. So he spent a diligent amount of time working on that part of his game, and that certainly shined through against Henan Ferreira. That's the approach you want to take with a guy that size, that athletic, that dangerous. Don't stand around in front of that guy. Find a way to put him on his back and make him fight from there as quickly as possible, and that's exactly what Francis did.
You know that then opens up a conversation of what's next for Francis.
Yeah.
What is next, do you think, for Francis inside that smart cage?
There's questions there that only Francis can answer, honestly. Where's his passion at? Did it get reignited and reinvigorated after this win and this dedication to Kobe? Or is, being the chairman of PFL Africa going to be enough and creating an opportunity and infrastructure for other athletes like him that won't have to cross borders and get thrown in jail and all the other stuff that he's endured to become a world champion. So I think both those things are intriguing for him. Really, the sky's the limit. It's a function of his heart and where he wants to go, because we know what he's capable of.
Do you ever envisage a time, given the landscape that we're currently sat in, and we're experiencing it a lot in boxing, where promoters are starting to work with each other and super fights are getting made. Francis is, without any shadow of a doubt, one of the biggest names in MMA worldwide. Whatever franchise you support or whoever you check out. We have a conversation in the UFC at the moment between John Jones and Tom Aspinall, whether they're going to do it or whether they're not going to do it. But it would, as a fan, seem incredibly logical that Francis Ngannou is still in that conversation at that top level. And I would love to see Francis maybe fight the winner of that. Do you envisage a time where we could cross-promote and get everybody together?
I mean, obviously, the champs versus champs was a huge fight with Bellator, keeping that brand intact and doing that, matching up the champs from the PFL. Those are the fights the fans wanted to see. That was certainly the fight I pursued for a long time, to fight Fedor, and never happened. And I think that conversation, obviously, we're still having it right now. And John Jones, as much as he doesn't want to fight Francis, is going to have trouble avoiding that. Now he says he doesn't want to fight Tom. I mean, why? You're supposedly the GOAT. Step up and fight whoever they want you to fight. And
what'd you make
continue
of all
that? I don't know, honestly. I don't know. I'm not in John's head, so I couldn't tell you. I think, he needs to step up and fight the guys they want him to fight. You can't shy away from guys, anybody, honestly. So, I mean, that's a challenge, but certainly Tom has earned a crack and deserves that. Whether Francis and they do a co-promotion or a cross-promotion, that's something that our sport is still very anti-competitive. There's no transparency in the sport. There's no way to do those types of cross-promotions. The restrictive nature of the contracts and the promotions themselves prevent that. That's why the Fedor fight never happened. M1 wanted to do a co-promotion with the UFC, and the UFC wasn't willing to do that. And I don't think that their attitude on co-promotions has changed. So that will be a big challenge to see Francis get in there with John or Tom, if Tom beat John. I mean,
absolutely. PFL's still relatively young. It's made incredible strides in the period of time that it has been in the landscape. What do you envisage over the next 5 years for the PFL?
Well, I think you're going to see the pay-per-view model continue to flourish and grow. I think the Francis Henin fight was a big step in the right direction. Chris Cyborg was amazing, winning her 5th title in her
As
5th
if I've not asked you
promotion.
about Chris Cyborg.
Larissa Pacheco, I
She was
mean,
awesome.
she did a great job as a 2-time champ for the PFL as well in that fight. It was a great fight. Eblin and on down the line from all of the people at that level, at that kind of pay-per-view level. That future looks bright. I think you're seeing the 2 more feeder programs come on next year with Australia and Africa. I think eventually you'll see Latin America come on board as well as a feeder program to feed the global, and the global feeding the pay-per-view. That's the structure I see them putting in place, and it's ambitious and it's very interesting. And been scrambling to recover, I think, from absorbing 215 fighters in the Bellator roster and keeping that brand intact has been a real challenge and some growing pains for the organization through all that. But here we are. Had a great season, looking to cap that off with these finals. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone with the MENA finale here as the undercard, which I thought was very, very smart. Continues to flourish the sport does in this region of the world. I think we're going to see Bellator back over here in January. It sounds like in a neighboring country. So it's going to be interesting.
It's just on what you were just saying there. I mean, that's a difficult thing to do, to absorb everything that they've done with Bellator, to absorb that roster, to keep everybody happy, to keep everybody active. I know that, like speaking to the guys here, they're incredibly happy because we've just been speaking about the activity levels. It's difficult to keep getting those guys out, but I'm sure behind the scenes they're working to try and keep that top talent as happy as they can possibly be. Yeah,
I think they're doing the best they can. The ball's been dropped a couple times. There's no way around that. I mean, there's just no way to keep up with everything. So, but focus on the positive, keep pushing forward, stay positive, and keep doing good things for the right reasons.
And are you enjoying it? You seem to be enjoying it. Every time I tune into the TV, you've got a massive smile on your face, enjoying
I feel like I got the best seat in the house. I'm sitting by 2 guys I admire tremendously, in Sean and Dan, and you can't be any closer to the fight. So, it's awesome.
Does the fire ever go away when you're watching? Do you think to yourself, go on, man?
I don't think it ever will, honestly. No. You start, you're trying to make it happen while you're in your seat.
Randy's coming back, ladies and gentlemen. Any movies in the pipeline?
I just finished one called Pitfall in August. Okay. That was a lot of fun, kind of a slasher flick, and I'm playing the psycho, running around killing people. So that's the fun part of making movies. You get to say and do things you'd never do in real life.
Randy, it's always a pleasure to speak to you.
Pleasure, man.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.